I want you to take a message to Hogan. You tell him to let it go. If he doesn't, everybody is gonna die.
Welcome to Second Class Cinema, the show where we watch a B movie and immediately discuss. I'm Tom. I'm here with Brittany and Erik.
Hi.
Hello.
How's it going?
Great.
Pretty well.
Good. Excellent. Tonight we watched Deadliest Prey.
That sounds like another movie we've watched.
It does. It sounds a lot like Deadly Prey, in which we watched about a year or so ago.
A little while ago, yeah.
About a year or so ago, we watched...
We've been doing this for over a year.
Yeah, I've done this for a while.
It's crazy.
It's been a year, so everything is a year-ish ago.
Exactly. So yeah, we watched Deadly Prey. I think it was a really early episode, maybe episode 10 or 11. We really, really enjoyed this movie. We loved Deadly Prey. It was one of maybe our early fuck yes.
Yeah, I think it was a unanimous.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure we yelled it. Actually, in the drop where we all yell fuck yeah, it's from this movie, from Deadly Prey.
That's an old drop.
Yeah, and so it was Erik's pick. Erik, why did we pick Deadliest Prey? Besides what I've just said.
Well, thought it'd be an interesting compare and contrast to Samurai Cop 2, which is a similar 25 years later sequel to a cult classic, like picked up by internet hype kind of sequel, you know?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to kind of compare what happened with this versus what happened with Samurai Cop 2. And also, I felt like Deadliest Prey probably be interesting because it involves the same actors, same director, more importantly. And I was curious to see would it have like the same vibe as the original, and how would they handle some of the plot points that happen in the first one in regards to a sequel where you have an entire returning cast.
Yes, that's all excellent. I can agree with that. So what was Deadliest Prey about?
Okay, well, Colonel Hogan is now in jail for his crimes.
Okay.
For those of you who haven't seen the original, it's basically what's the word I'm looking for? Like a Deadliest Game type of scenario.
Yeah.
We have Mike Danton, who is an excellent soldier in Vietnam, who is captured by Colonel Hogan to be chased by these mercenaries for some reason. I can't remember.
For
quite
training practice.
It was,
yeah,
right?
for training purposes.
Yep.
They capture Mike Danton and they don't realize he's a Vietnam vet, and he destroys the shit out of all these guys. And then he destroys the shit out of them again. And eventually Mike Danton gets Hogan into a corner and makes him play the game.
Yes.
So
yeah, and
we cut forward to 27 years after that movie takes place. Colonel Hogan is in jail for all of his misdeeds, and Mike Danton is kind of like a mythical hero. Like, people know of him as Mike Danton. Back in the 80s, he
American badass.
yeah, exactly. It's like John McClane is kind of like a small time celebrity in like Die Hard 2 and 3.
Yeah,
you know?
like they compare him to the Terminator, I think.
Yeah.
At one
and
point.
Rambo, which makes a lot of sense.
Perfect. So Colonel Hogan finally gets released from jail. As it turns out, he still has underlings doing jobs on the outside, and they're setting up for revenge against Mike Danton. So the beginning of the movie pretty much plays out exactly like the first one, where Mike Danton goes to take out the trash, and he gets knocked out and taken to the game where he's being chased by mercenaries. But this time, Colonel Hogan is broadcasting it for the internet, so everyone can basically see how good Mike Danton is, and more importantly, how good Colonel Hogan is. And the rest of the plot pretty much plays out very similarly to the first movie.
Much like Scream 4. They were like, how can we modernize this? And they were like, put it on the internet.
Perfect.
Yeah, just stream it. That's where
What are
the
those-
future's going.
What are those kids doing these days on the internet?
They're on the titter.
On their other Tinder.
Okay, you clowns, cut the crap.
All right, so let's start with successes, guys. Where would we like to begin?
I think it's a great sequel premise.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything wrong with retreading the original movie's ground when it comes to a part 2. Most people, when they're going to a part 2 sequel, they're looking for more of the same. And really only the most exceptional of sequels really divert from what the first movie set in place, like, you know, Terminator 2 or Aliens.
Or
you know,
Short Circuit 2. Yeah.
of course, we know your favorite sequel, Short Circuit 2.
Correct. John 5.
Is alive.
Of course he is.
But like a lot of part 2s retread the same ground, and I mean, even if they're not the best movies, they're usually serviceable. And I feel like this did just enough to separate itself from the original, modernize it in such a way that makes sense. And I felt that was a good approach for this movie, as I hate to keep harping on it, as opposed to Samurai Cop 2, which got very convoluted in its execution. When, I mean, really all I wanted was to see Samurai Cop 1, but in a different setting and a slightly different plot.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't watch like Lethal Weapon 2 or Die Hard 2 and say, I wish they were in space. You know, like...
Well, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
No, I just completely agree. That was one of the strengths I had as well, that it was different enough, but it had like comfortable familiarity. I felt like towards the end it started to feel a little more like shot for shot at times, and that kind of bothered me a little bit, but not enough to completely detract from that. I thought that was a plus.
Now, do you think it was a very intentional shot for shot, or
Yes.
was this a achieving the same coverage?
I think it was an intentional shot for shot, and I feel like you can tell by the way it paid homage to the first one. Like when you have like the gearing up montage, and he's like getting all his bullets and everything, and then he takes his like cut off denim shorts out of the cabinet and then like looks at them and like throws them back.
Yeah.
Like, again, to harp on it or to not harp on it, but Samurai Cop 2 just made mention of like the black gift, but like didn't actually, I don't know, I feel like they didn't go all the way, but I feel like this movie did, and it knowingly nodded at those things without winking at the camera.
Yes. Yeah, I thought this as maybe the biggest success is just this movie's callbacks to the original picture.
Yeah.
They were so good. They were, I don't know, they were either...
They were subtle.
Well, that's exact.
Some
So they
of
were
them.
either really subtle or they were exact, like exact things that they know they needed to achieve, because I feel like they watch Deadly Prey, the filmmakers and everyone involved, they watch the original movie and they can identify why it may have stuck. Now, this Blu-ray, which Erik purchased, had some pretty cool interviews with some of the crew on it, David A. Pryor, Ted Pryor, a couple of the other actors in the movie, and they were talking about how they didn't even know that this was such a cult hit. But even watching it...
Which is crazy.
Which is crazy, because this, honestly, is one of the way better B action movies. Like, it was so well put together, the first one, Deadly Prey. But they didn't even realize that this movie had such a cult following. But even reviewing their movie, they have to understand, like, what parts that people could attach themselves to, and then they reprise those parts.
Yeah, I feel like in this case it was more so a reprisal of the actual character than the film, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I follow you.
Like, in other instances, we've had movies that kind of nod too heavily to the past, like to the last film, instead of just nodding at things their character would have done. Like when Mike steals that guy's boots and he's like, I'm not going to do this barefoot again. Like, he's acknowledging his character's past experiences without blatantly being like, hey, remember Deadly Prey?
Yeah, that's true. And what I liked about the overall movie is that they've created a universe in which all these events actually happened, which I think is a great platform to make sure that some of these jokes hit.
Yeah.
Because everyone in this movie knows that it already happened once, which is cool.
Definitely.
And it's a good way to, I mean, not to get like super memey with the movie, because is it the right? I don't know how to pronounce that fucking word. But I feel like even when we had characters referring to Mike Danton, he's like, oh, he's such a badass. He's a really cool dude. Like, there's a reason for them to be like in awe of this Mike Danton character, and not just because that's a really fun movie that people on the internet like. It's because Mike Danton's a real dude. And I can really appreciate that if they're even going to, at least if they're going to take the approach of like, Mike Danton's so cool, he is cool in that universe.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's
Definitely.
really awesome. I like that
Bonafide
approach.
badass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else for successes?
I thought the dialogue, for the most part, like, I don't want to say it was lacking in some parts, because it was fine. I mean, some people's delivery was like on or off. That's neither here nor there. But I thought for the most part it was very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a witty movie.
Yeah.
It knew what it was doing.
I feel like it used what it had well.
I thought just the main performances by Mike Danton and Colonel Hogan, I thought those two were, the nucleus of this movie, and they brought it. So they were 80% of what this movie was offering to us, and that was a total success.
I mostly just hated Hogan's bimbo.
Yeah.
All her delivery was terrible.
Very wooden, but then I'm trying to remember his bimbo in the first movie, and if the delivery was very similar.
I feel like she was a little more natural.
I liked the first bimbo better.
The one with the military grade diper.
Correct. That's
there
the one.
was no military grade diaper in this.
Which is unfortunate.
I did not detract or give it points for that.
Another thing I thought this movie did kind of cool was, which we brought up earlier, which is how do we make it futuristic? Oh, stick it on the internet. And I felt like what was cool about that was it was these two guys who were doing the same thing they were doing 27 years ago in 1987. They were doing the same thing, but they just kept getting interrupted by the future. I felt like they were just clashing with everything that was happening now was getting in the way of them doing what they wanted to do. Like our set of hacker characters just kept getting in the way. And the fact that it was on the internet was also just kind of in the way for everyone. And it was like, if they had just been left alone, all this still would have happened.
It would have been the same plot.
It would have been the same thing, but like all this new age stuff were just made everything more voyeuristic.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. I was like, man, anytime someone young or anything technological creeps in, it just gets in the way of doing what they need to do.
Well, yeah, because killing people is like a basic... It's like the most base survival instinct.
Well, yeah.
You don't need anything high-tech to murder a man.
You don't.
I mean, it helps.
It helps.
It certainly does.
But yeah, I noticed that. I thought that was a little interesting.
That is kind of interesting. I thought they did a good job of modernizing it, though. I mean, I feel like, I'm sure we can touch on this later, but I feel like making a sequel that's so close to a remake in itself is a risk, and they changed just enough to make it not redundant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I feel like I could watch Deadly Prey and then Deadliest Prey right afterwards. I wouldn't feel offended. Like, I wouldn't be annoyed, you know?
Yeah.
I agree.
I kind of wish we did.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate we don't have
So
time
it was
to do
nice
so.
and fresh in our minds.
Yeah. Unfortunate, but we watched anyway.
My last thing that I had was that I thought the effects were decent. I mean, everything looked real as far as I could tell.
I'm pretty sure
I maybe saw CG blood one time,
it has a couple times.
but
It's
that's
like
fine.
supplemental, you know?
Yeah,
And-
exactly. It wasn't like super glaringly obvious.
yeah. And I'm pretty sure all the explosions were practical. Like, I'm pretty sure they were blowing stuff up.
They did look real.
Yeah.
Either they did a great job. I would be very surprised if they could nail making explosion look that real, but not nail the green screen car ride.
I agree.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That would be very shocking to me.
I can agree with that. Anything else?
Just to tack onto that, I thought the outdoor shots were pretty gorgeous. They took the time to do a lot of outdoor scenes, which, I mean, if you didn't do those, you wouldn't have Deadliest Prey. You would have fucking Phantom Menace, you know, like, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But I thought that the tracking shots of Mike Danton running in the woods were excellently done. I feel like we don't see that a lot in lower budget B movies anymore. People don't bother to shoot on outside locations, or if they do, it's a little more controlled.
Yeah.
So we saw some really good dynamic shots in the outdoors, and I appreciate that.
Totally.
I think this is a movie that deserved that kind of treatment.
Definitely helps to sell it.
For sure. With that, do we have any failures? Let's talk about that.
I thought a lot of the death scenes were underwhelming at the beginning. I mean, they got better, but maybe I'm just like over glorifying Deadly Prey in my head and not accurately remembering the death scenes in that. But I feel like the ones in this were a little underwhelming comparatively. But they definitely improved as the movie went on.
Yeah, well, which is what the first Deadly Prey was. Deadly Prey was like a ramp up of violence, and I felt this movie did the same thing at the same pace, but maybe just with different degrees of violence.
That's true.
So I wasn't like too thrown off by that, but I know what you're saying. There was a lot of, stab drags, which is,
I think you used the exact phrase in our original episode.
That's exactly right. And it just came into me again now. Haven't said it
drag.
since.
That's so funny because right before you said that, I just imagined him grabbing someone and dragging them into the undergrowth, like the bushes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, he did that a lot. And then you were like, stab drag. And I was like, and there's a name for it.
Yeah, that's right. We did name that. I would say one of the things that I think this movie fell a little short of, there were a lot of technical issues that I think they faced on this movie. There was, anytime they were in the car with our hacker characters, it was poorly green screened, but honestly, I don't even care. Like, I don't
care less.
That was the one scene that I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
But it's okay because everything else brought it. But I'd say like
they used their money and time where it was worth it.
true. I'd rather see a poorly green screened car scene once, and then I would rather see tons of real explosions in the woods. Like that's a trade off I'm willing to make.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think on top of other technical issues, there were some sound problems. Let's be honest.
The crew and the reflection.
Yeah, honestly, that probably happens in a lot of movies, but we noticed the entire crew sitting in somebody's reflection of the sunglasses. But that's okay. That's fine. I don't even care.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like a problem you'd see in Deadly Prey. Like,
Yeah.
even if it was intentional or if it wasn't,
It was not.
that doesn't bother me as much as
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother me as much as that one girl who kept saying "true that."
Oh, that was a failure.
That was harsh.
That was a failed attempt at comedy.
But I think like the biggest technical was a bit of audio stuff. Like it was a hard
There's a lot
time
of
hearing
buzzing.
people. A lot of buzzing. I don't know. That was the one thing that I wish they had just really not let fall like that would be that audio.
Yeah.
because there's some great one-liners.
In terms of like if this was like a discovered film like Deadly Prey is, that might be funny. But in terms of it being an intentional sequel based on a cult classic, that's not something that's as funny anymore. You know,
I agree.
It's something when you have like an unintentional funny movie, that kind of thing just adds on top of it. When it's supposed to be intentionally funny, which this movie is very intentionally funny, that detracts from it.
I agree. And in this movie, we watched the credits, and this movie was shot on the Red camera, which is a very pretty looking camera. And then to have those good images that they captured along with this poor audio, it's just that was the one thing I wish they really brought up to higher quality.
I don't know if it's just the audio that I was noticing that made it feel different, but I wanted to pose the question as to whether or not Deadly Prey seemed to have better production value than this.
Honestly, I feel like
Because Deadly Prey just felt very like smooth to me. I don't know if I'm just not familiarized because I haven't watched it in like a year, but
I think they had more access to more realistic sets. Like it seems like they probably had access to they had access to an actual goddamn tank in the original Deadly Prey.
That's true.
You know, they had access to like military barracks and like an actual, suburbs so they could shoot wide and that kind of thing. I'm sure they had more just access in general. And I mean, something that we haven't mentioned yet is that this movie was shot in the back of another film.
yes.
Relentless Justice.
I want to see that.
Yeah, I definitely want to see that. So yeah, they piggybacked the production of Relentless Justice
I think so, yeah.
with shooting Deadliest Prey.
So maybe it was just the weird audio glitches that kind of made me feel like the production value was lesser. Because
it was
feel like
definitely
when
less.
When you hear that static and like background noise, it really makes it feel way lower budget than it really is.
I agree. Yeah, that's kind of what I wished it would bring up a level. But in all honesty, I'm pretty sure the production values are like almost a carbon copy, just 27 years later.
That's true.
Like I feel like if this happened 27 years ago, like this movie, it would be Deadly Prey still.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they did the exact same thing. But I mean, even with the interview on this Blu-ray with David A. Pryor, the director, he was saying, the original one was a little more guerrilla, a little more down and dirty, and lots of setups per day, making sure you got coverage. And he said how much he grew up and how much quicker he was able to achieve full coverage of a scene and being able to move on. So I think maybe just the overkill gave them so many in the original Deadly Prey gave them so many more opportunities to cut the ideal scene.
Yeah.
Like get things right.
Get things done right and like make sure that edit was super tight and all that jazz.
Because it definitely seemed like there might have been a couple of spots where maybe they didn't shoot enough. Like when those two like internet entrepreneurs get killed, it's kind of done like off screen with an audio effect. Like it seems like they forgot to shoot that scene.
Yeah,
Or forgot to resolve it, or maybe those characters just got written out very suddenly in the script.
it's true.
I think that was like towards the middle, right?
Yeah,
It was.
Because my last, negative, if I'm nitpicking, was that around like the 35-minute mark, it felt like it started to kind of drag a little bit. Mm-hmm. But because I looked down and it said 35 minutes, and I was like, this feels forever. This movie's been on for so long. But then it kind of balanced itself out again in the third act, I felt.
Yeah.
It's funny because I feel like we've said all these same things about the first movie, but it's been so long since I've heard that episode.
There was also something else I wrote down that I wanted to know if I had said in the first movie.
Go for it.
Hogan kills so many of his own guys. I think we did.
Well, Thornton too.
I was like, this feels familiar. I was like, he's acting like these dudes are just expendable.
Well, they are. I feel like at any point in time in this movie, the amount of soldiers they were walking with and who these soldiers were was just constantly changing.
It varied greatly from like shot to shot.
Yeah. And fun fact for everyone, I wrote my notes for Deadliest Prey on the back of my notes for Deadly Prey.
Oh, do you have any insightful notes about Deadly Prey that might relate to this?
I might. Let's take a look. See here. Lots of close range shooting, and that stood true.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was Mike Danton shooting people in the face at point blank range again.
Yes.
Let's see. Actually, yeah. I mean,
That's the only note you have.
that's it. Well, one thing that this movie, was missing, and it's of no fault besides, Father Time, is that we did not get the greased up action gazelle Bob that is Mike Danton.
It's true.
We didn't get that, but
Ted asked us to take it easy on him.
Yeah.
and he did,
Fair enough.
and I totally understand. I mean,
Yeah.
he's in his 50s now. That's the one thing is, Mike Danton was so sleek. He really was. And I guess we can now have the debate again as of Samurai Cop 2 and Deadliest Prey. Let's
Oof.
say who's got the better bod. Is
Okay.
it
So-
Samurai Cop Joe Marshall?
Sequel bod or just
Sequel bod.
overall?
So let's
Sequel
talk
bod.
original determination.
Original.
I think I believe we determined that Mike Danton destroys Joe Marshall.
An original bod.
An original bod.
yeah.
An original bod and like fist fight, let's
Even
say.
if I didn't say that a year ago, I'm saying it now.
I'm pretty sure we all agree.
I think we all agree Mike Danton far, 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 far better. Yeah.
And then sequel bod?
Well, I didn't get to confirm if Mike Danton has been skipping leg days this time.
No. I didn't get to confirm that.
He definitely wasn't before.
No, we found that out the hard way.
Oh, he threw that shit in my face.
Yeah. And then what about Samurai Cop Joe Marshall?
I feel like he's in pretty good shape for 25 years later.
I agree, and he's
He
got the
is too.
gristle. He's got the gristle going in his later years, which I like.
Gristle.
What?
Face gristle.
That's not a compliment. Like a steak.
What, you don't like a nice face steak?
Yeah, I like a face that's hard to chew.
As a side for your knife beans.
You don't knock my knife.
I feel like Joe Marshall is still like cut, but I feel like Mike Danton has bigger muscles still.
Mike Danton has dad strength.
Well, this is
Well, okay,
Deadliest
but
Prey.
I feel like it is reversed because I feel like Mike Danton used to be the more cut one. And like Samurai Cop was just wicked like built,
yeah.
but I feel like it's totally reversed now. Like
Switched it
Samurai
up.
Cop is a little more cut, whereas Mike Danton has bigger muscles.
Yeah, dude.
So I don't know, man.
He's thick. There's a lot of dad muscles floating around, a lot of uncle muscles in this movie.
Oh, dude, yeah, our returning character Thornton,
Uncle Lieutenant
Uncle
Thornton.
muscle.
Uncle Lieutenant Thornton. He's like a wicked uncle now. It was awesome.
It was great.
He's like he put on a lot of weight between the original and now. And I think we watched one of the interviews and he said he took off 35 pounds and he started working out a little bit. And you could see like
And then
his
he
arms.
flexed his gun and it
Dude,
was huge.
He had just one giant gun. Like it was
He knows
enormous.
exactly where the beach is. Just
Yeah.
ask him.
Oh,
Like-
yeah.
Fucking total uncle muscles.
Uncle muscle.
Do we have any more questions or anything like that before we move on to favorite parts?
No further questions, Your Honor.
No.
All right.
The defense rests.
All right, fair enough. Let's
Overruled.
What? Let's talk about some favorite parts.
Case closed.
Most of my
Object!
most of my favorite overruled. Most of my favorite parts in this were just dialogue.
Yeah.
Oh, there were so many funny lines in this movie.
Okay.
Like when Mike corners that guy and asks him why he did it, and he said because he needed a job, and then he kills him and tells him he should have filed for unemployment. Or
Yep.
does that in the reverse order. He tells him he should have filed for unemployment, and then he kills him.
Pretty sure he killed him first.
No, he killed him.
Yeah.
Did he?
First, yes, and then says,
I feel like he does a lot of that, and I like it.
yeah, he does a lot of post-murder one-liners.
And here's the thing: I distinctly remember us talking in the first, like one of our negatives about the original Deadly Prey is that it lacked good one-liners. It was
really?
mostly because it was mostly just like "fuck you,
Yeah,
you're gonna die."
that's true. It was like all business.
It was all business. Yeah, it's like how people probably talk to each other when they're going to kill them.
Yeah.
Like,
Did toss a lot of fuck yous in this one too, though.
yeah. But I feel like this one got a little more creative. Like they're trying to have a little more fun with the Mike Danton character.
Oh, definitely.
which I think worked great for this.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
There's another there's another great bit where Mike Dan has drawn a smiley face on the ground, and one of the poor mercenaries has happened upon it, and he sneaks up on the mercenary, says, "Have a nice day," stabs him, and then says, "Too late." It's fucking
One of my
great.
favorite parts.
Oh, yeah. I fucking love Mike Danton.
Mike Danton's so good because he's such a doofy guy in the first one, and he's still a doofy guy 27 years later. Like,
But he's a hard doof.
such a hard doof.
Dude, it's awesome. He's
Mike
fucking
Danton
great time.
Pretty much rules.
Yep.
Did you have any favorites you want to share?
I just have one quick one because you guys have a lot, and I just want to squeeze one in. And there was just a great scene where Mike Danton was running from a helicopter, in which he shot that helicopter down from the ground. And I don't know. Anytime there's a man versus a helicopter, I mean, I got to be rooting for that man.
The
Man
one
versus
solo success of the last match
Was
man versus helicopter.
There's man versus helicopter.
Can't deny a man taking down a helicopter.
One man taking down an entire copter is just satisfying.
It's the
Let's
peak
not
of
forget-
action prowess for you.
It really is.
Let's not forget woman taking down a helicopter either. Guns.
Oh, see? Oh, that's 2 in a row.
True.
And that was one of my favorite parts from the last one.
go.
I love that. It's my new favorite thing.
When the hackers, I shudder to even call them that, but that's what they were. When the hackers were watching the whole thing unfold on the internet streaming thing, and they started to kind of like exposition us about Mike Danton's backstory, and they were like, "Oh, didn't they base Rambo on him?" And then somebody else was like, "No, but he like actually killed a whole bunch of dudes." And then the other guy goes, "Oh, so like Terminator 2 then?" I just thought that was wicked funny.
Yeah, if those characters had a good moment, it was that one. Because the hackers were a bit rough around the edges. Once again, that element that just clashed with this movie.
Yeah.
I
get why they did.
I totally
do it.
get it.
I kind of like the idea of them as like the audience insert. It could have used a little tightening up because I feel like that was a really good opportunity for us to like relate to somebody in this movie.
Yeah.
As
totally.
fans of, I mean, they're essentially just fans of Deadly Prey. That's what these characters are, and they've been inserted into this movie, and I like that as a concept.
Mike Danton fanboy.
They really are, yeah.
We
it's-
can identify
I mean,
with
the
that.
one guy was wearing an Everything is Terrible t-shirt.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's where he comes from or if he's just like a big fan of that website. But I mean, that's, from what I understand, from part of where Deadly Prey's like cult fan base came from is that
Yes.
Everything is Terrible put up like this super cut of like everything great about that movie, and it just kind of spiraled from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like those characters, I get what they were doing with that. Like, I don't disrespect
No.
the idea there. It just needed another pass in the writer's room, I think.
I think it just lacked a bit of execution, but I think all is well because those 3 hacker characters just got all shot down at the end of the movie by Colonel Hogan. Just fucking assault rifles them all down.
There's nothing better than a comic relief that doesn't quite work, but then they die.
Yeah,
Like, I'm okay with that decision.
I am too. I think
Yeah.
they made the right call. They made the right call there.
My last favorite part was our obvious surprise ending.
Oh my god, we're gonna lay down a spoiler alert for this. I know we so rarely do.
We rarely lay down spoiler alerts, and frankly, we don't care. But for this one,
This is such like this.
It caught us so off guard.
This brought this movie from a fuck yes to what I'm going to think is a fuck yeah for me.
okay,
Not to spoil the ratings.
we're not quite there. So
I know.
Okay,
but
whatever.
let's just say.
All right, let's say it.
Just beep it out.
Okay.
Gonna bring it to a poo.
Yes.
We're at the very end of the movie. It's playing out very much like the first one did. Colonel Hogan has Mike Danton's wife, and he's there with Thornton, and he's threatening to kill Mike Danton's wife. And Mike Danton shows up to the scene, yells, "No!"
Again. This
Again.
all happens again.
This is
Yeah.
all parallel to the first movie.
Where he unfortunately could not save.
He could not save his wife, and then he enacted his immediate revenge. And his wife is about to get killed, and all of a sudden we see a gun show up off camera, shoot Thornton in the arm, and stop the slaying. And then it turns out it's Mike Danton's son, who's
like
eight. Yeah,
I love how we both assigned him the same age.
because he's 8. He shouldn't be having a gun.
Earlier in the movie, he like told to go with the hackers and for them to keep him safe. So why the fuck did they bring him back to this deadly ground?
These actors have the worst.
Oh my
judgment.
god! But the best part is that he blows this dude away.
Yeah.
And then looks at his dad and knowingly nods.
Oh my god.
Like, you got it, dude.
Like, I got your back, partner.
Oh my god! It was out of control.
Now, I think we've determined that his son was played by his actual real life son.
It was.
Yes.
Michael Pryor.
Michael
Is that right?
Pryor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many layers here that I can't even handle. That like
Dude, this is like a club sandwich.
It's yes. This is a club sandwich of Pryors and
Deadliest fam.
But I mean, it's so funny because he looked like a little Mike Danton from like the original. He had like the kind of moppy hair and like the gray like t-shirt and all that fun stuff. It was
his
such a
name
treat.
on it.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Excellent.
But then the end, when it's gonna end in the Deadly Prey fashion of just like a silhouette with like the sunset in the background and a silhouette of Mike Dan like fist pumping and like yelling, and it just ends with him and his son like silhouetted.
Oh, dude, it's amazing because that's
And
how.
then it said the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I feel like this is where this movie, like, I feel like this whole movie was a build up to a punchline.
Which was.
And it was that, and they fucking nailed it.
Oh,
yeah,
dude.
they did.
And there's nothing better than a movie long punchline that pays off.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I didn't see it coming.
Me neither.
Like, they did not. Like, I didn't. It wasn't so far to left field where I'm like, stupid.
Yeah.
Didn't see that. And it wasn't like they didn't tell us, like, no, okay, well, no, his son's going to show up.
I
No,
mean, it was
nice.
ludicrous, but
Oh, it's absurd.
It was
Yeah.
awesome.
But no, I get it. But like in this world, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, Mike Dan is such a hard ass. He passed on these genes to his son, who is 8, as we have decided.
I was like, wait, he wasn't in Vietnam.
Yeah, no. Only Mike Danton was the best in Vietnam. His son can't be. He's 8. He was
Never
born in
too
a year
young
that starts
to have
with
a
2.
Vietnam flashback.
All right, that's it. You
Yeah, that's the end of our spoilers. You can unplug your ears now.
That's it. You can unpause. So are we ready to move on to ratings?
Yeah, I think I'm good. I had a couple other minor favorite parts, but they're not really worth
We
mentioning.
weren't afforded a man on fire, but we were afforded a foot on fire.
That's a nice
And
callback.
hey, I'll take it.
I'll take it. I get it. It's 2013 when this movie was shot. Man on fire is kind of a big liability in terms of insurance.
So let's just light a boot on fire.
Light a
take
foot on
a
fire.
foot.
I'll take a foot on fire.
Yeah, that's enough.
We'll take a meaty calv.
One Calv.
All right,
Calvin and Hobbes.
we're gonna rate it. Rating it. So let's rate it then.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with.
Yeah,
fuck
I'm gonna
you.
have to give it an unfortunate fuck off.
Oh my god, my fucking father.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
All right, let's rate Deadliest Prey from 2013
We're
Stop
rating your
saying
dad?
Dadliest.
because this movie is about a bunch of deadly dads.
Best way to describe this movie.
Who wants to start?
I think I can go. I'm just gonna give this a straight up fuck yeah.
Okay.
I thought this was a blast. It was very much in the same vein as the original without feeling like they were retreading too much ground. There were certain points where I was like, ooh, maybe they're playing a little too close, like a little too safe. But I feel like it diverged just enough and they came up with a great plot concept to make it a solid sequel. Like if this came out, I mean, it obviously wouldn't make sense to have this come out 2 years after the original because no one would know what the fuck the internet is. But I mean, just assuming there was like an equivalent concept, like Videodrome. There's like an underground like
cable
TV
network?
Yeah, exactly. And they're airing it for all these deviants. That could work, and that'd be perfectly fine for a sequel that they if they did decide to do that in like 1990.
Yeah.
And they knocked it out of the park. I thought it was very funny. The parts that were intentionally funny were funny. The parts that were unintentionally funny were really funny. And that's all I ask from a cult classic sequel. They didn't waste our time. They didn't do something really convoluted. It was just a very straightforward, easy to watch movie, and that's all I really ask from a cult classic. And its sequels.
I can agree with that, and I will give it a fuck yes. So I'm not gonna go all in on the fuck yeah, even though I kind of want to, but I'm gonna hold a little bit of reserve because I do like Deadly Prey more.
This is definitely not as good as the original, but that's also not saying a whole lot.
That
I agree, though.
and that's fine. And I like Deadly Prey. Like I don't know, that's got to be one of the best things out of the 60 5+ things that we've watched here, that's got to be top 5.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, definitely.
This is probably more like top 15. So I just there's a distinction there for me. There's a clear delineation of level here. So I just want to make that clear. So it's a fuck yes, but it was a great time. Absolutely recommend it. This might be the best 1-2 punch, like double feature that we have the opportunity to watch.
Yeah, I'd have a hard time disagreeing.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I can't think of...
I'm not sure what would have happened. I'm not sure what's in our future, but I'm not sure it's going to be better than this. So
for someone to go back and make a sequel 27 years later,
yeah,
I think this is as good as it gets.
I'm right there with you. I'm not sure I can expect much more from anything.
I was really having a hard time deciding whether I wanted to give it a fuck yes or a fuck yeah, and I think I'm gonna go with a fuck yes.
Okay.
I was like teetering towards the fuck yeah with the fucking surprise son cameo at the end, but it did have its share of flaws, however relatively tiny they are. I thought it was like self-referential without being lazy, which I appreciated a lot. It was fun, it was funny, it was just enjoyable. I liked it. I would recommend it for sure.
I would too. And I'm thinking about making an addendum to the fuck scale where fuck yes is also our fucking sweeps. What do you guys think?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
like if it's overwhelmingly positive,
is just a fuck,
because that's not a mid-range vote.
Exactly. It's above average. That's
like we all recommend this movie.
Yeah, it's an A-.
I support
like it's
that.
still an A. So this movie is a fucking sweep because I wouldn't feel right not putting it there.
This is a deadliest A-.
Yes.
Support that decision.
All right, good. Any final thoughts, guys? Anything you want to talk about one more time?
I really want to watch Relentless Justice. I'm kind of curious to see what movie this was shot on the back of.
Yeah,
I think that's why I'm a little. Why I think this is a fuck yeah, just because of the circumstances this movie was shot in.
True.
Where it's like they just did this one for fun, pretty much. Like
I kind of want to watch any of their other movies.
I do, because they were talking about how they've been doing movies this entire time, apparently. Like,
oh yeah, David and Ted have worked on tons of movies together.
I would love to see something else they've done.
Yeah. And it was actually really cool to
I want Action Gazelle.
Action Gazelle, Mike Danton.
Yeah.
Ted Pryor. Also, an interesting fact was to find out that Ted Pryor, who plays Mike Danton, was also the first AD, which is a hard job on set when you're the assistant director like that. So he was
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Fetching a lot of coffee, you know.
No, not the assistant to the director. Different. So I mean, he had to keep this whole picture in motion while being in the movie. That's a hard job. Yep. And I know a lot of people did double duty. I saw a lot of double names in the credits. Everyone worked really hard.
I'm sure it was a relatively small production.
Yeah, well, because if they're piggybacking on another movie, that means they probably just had a lot of the same set, a lot of the same crew, a lot of the same equipment.
Yeah.
So they were just trying to do as much as they could when they could, which is cool. And I think what came out the other side was fantastic for what they were doing.
Yeah. This is a real treat for fans.
Yes. All right, if that's it, that's it. We're done.
That's all she wrote.
That's it. You've been listening to Second Class Cinema. We watched 2013's Deadliest Prey, Mike Danton Action Gazelle Special.
Buy a copy.
Buy a copy on Blu-ray like we did, because we do things the right way. It was pretty good quality all around. It was pretty cheap and totally worth it. So go and buy both. Deadly Prey and Deadliest Prey.
Definitely get both.
Treat yourself.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen one or the other, make it a double feature for yourself.
Yeah, go all in.
Yeah.
It's worth it. This movie was pretty short, too. It was just over an hour. It was like 70 minutes.
Yeah, it was like an hour 17 or something.
Oh, was it that much? Okay, yeah. All right, I didn't think it was that much, but you're probably right and I'm probably wrong.
I think the last thing I saw was like an hour 14.
Okay.
So.
All right. All right.
You know.
Fair enough. If you'd like more information, visit Facebook, facebook.com/secondclasscinema. If you want to listen to our podcast, you can start wherever you're listening to us right now. You can also go to iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, secondclasscinema.com, and followingfilms.com. And that's where we are. We're all in all those places. And we're on YouTube, too.
Yeah.
A couple things out there.
Let's thank our imaginary guest.
Yeah, thank you. And good night.
Thanks, Joshua.
Thank you, Joshua.
Just Josh and you.